All right, so how's everybody doing? Welcome to another Here's the Thing at the End of the Day. I think this is episode 11.
Yep.
DJ and Josh did their, what's that, Friday
Friday
roundup?
night. Friday night. They call it Friday night pregame. It's like interchangeable, but anywho, it's
Friday
the
night.
Friday.
Oh! Can you smell what the Rock is cooking? Anyway, Ricky, what are we discussing on this here episode?
So we're gonna just do a little bit of a roundup for Thursday night, and our thoughts on what occurred, more or less like what the Saints did and how that turned out. And we're gonna talk about the Giants and Browns and their changes to their staff. And then of course our games coming up and fantasy must starts and must sits.
Yeet. So we're gonna talk about that Thursday night game, and it started out pretty well for the Saints, and then it ended up pretty crappy after. I mean, what was it? There was like a minute on the clock, or like a minute 30,
Yeah, it was
and
about.
that was like a situation where Drew Brees, he had his hand stuck in the cookie jar, trying to get the touchdown, try to get the lead on the board, but I think both of us agree that that wasn't the right move.
Yeah.
Why wasn't it the right move?
Okay, so my logic was that, and I can understand, like, hey, our team's beat up. I think we go for the win. I get the logic that Sean Payton was trying to go with, but my issue is you can clearly see they were the Saints were easily moving in between the lines. Like Drew Brees was, I don't want to say like of course they stalled on some drives, but on that particular drive, I'm pretty sure they could have been equipped. And especially since the defense was doing pretty decent in getting the Falcons off the field, my thing was you run the clock out and you try to get as close as you can to the end zone, and then if you can't, then you kick a field goal going to overtime.
Exactly. It's
But
not worth it. It's not. I mean, if you can get points, you get points, but you have to worry about the other, because on those two other drives, the Falcons scored 10 points. They were able to easily get down the field. Whether you're gonna say it's because the refs or not, that's obvious. The officiating has obviously been garbage this year, like it basically has been every year. But you kind of have to slow change it there. And my feeling is that you slow change it until you have to kick a field goal. Like you can't really be judged for kicking a field goal too early. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like it was an important game in the division. Now the Falcons are a game back from the Saints. It was an important game in the fact that now if the Panthers win, they could tie with the Saints. It's just in that situation, I know they were on the road, but that's a situation where, if you have to play for overtime, then you should. But they got too aggressive on that.
and I want to bring this point up too because I was going up against someone that had said person in fantasy, but he got hurt. Unfortunately, thankfully, because that was the only player that was going to give him points. Alvin Kamara clearly makes the sense. The Saints, a much more dynamic team, and it clearly showed. I mean, the Saints became such a vanilla offense without him. Yeah, sure, Drew Brees was moving him up and down the field, in between the 20s. But there would be times where they they tried to run the same offense with the same personnel, and that clearly shows how important Alvin Kamara is to the team. I mean, he clearly uh he's if like you could argue that it's been exposed basically how to defeat the Saints if you can neutralize him, make him a vanilla offense, and
Yeah, I haven't
I
really watched
mean,
a lot of Saints games, but I have. I mean, they're obviously doing well, like freakishly well with him. So, obviously, he was a home run hitting fantasy option. and now that he's not on the field, then he'll probably be out for like a week to 2 weeks.
And that's huge because the Saints, honestly, the Saints needed this because if you win this game, you pretty much put the division in your grasp. And you don't have, and I don't want to say you don't have to worry, but like pretty much now the question of, okay, the Saints, like, before we were like the Saints are definitely going to win this division, but now considering how tight and how the schedule is working out, it's literally anyone's division. Me personally, I think looking at the trend, I personally think New Orleans and Atlanta are going to make the playoffs. Depending on if who's the division winner or not can be argued.
Yeah.
So it's just I think and I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but obviously I think the Panthers are going to fall off. I thought Atlanta was, but definitely I think Carolina will at this point. So I think
I honestly don't know. I'm super focused on my team.
Yeah, I mean I am too, so that's why I'm focused on their team. No. But no, but like watching that game. Oh, and we had to get into the Sean Payton and him running out onto the field to get a timeout. Now look, I do admit that kind of is annoying in the fact that the coaches literally have to run out onto the field just to get the attention to call a timeout, and yet he still gets flagged for it. But like, I will admit, like he did, as much as I kind of disagree with the refs, like Sean knew what he was getting into when he ran out onto the field. And like the guy was looking right at him and he threw the flag. Like it wasn't like
they have to start doing. It's like they need to. A coach needs. They need to stop with these flags. They need like a button. They need like a timeout button.
Technology.
You can press a button and then it sends a signal to the head ref and he's like, "Oh, this coach just called a timeout," or something like that, because how the hell was he supposed to get that timeout?
No, yeah. I know. And that's something like it's like
when it comes down to it, it was a third down with 53 seconds left or something like that. He needed to get, or maybe there was like a minute.
There was like a minute.
Minute 5 seconds left. He needed to get that timeout off so that he would have had time for his team to get the ball back. To me, A, he shouldn't have let a referee, an official, out of his sight. But B, I mean, you need to.
They need to fix that.
I wouldn't penalize him for that, but I really don't know what he said. Like
it could have been something he said that triggered it.
Yeah, it could have. I don't.
But yeah.
Because of course our officials get triggered really easily.
Yeah, like in this case,
one N-word, one "you stupid asshole." Whoop.
I just think it's too funny how the referees like, well, it's just I think it's ridiculous because it's like in the sense that if a coach has to step like 10 feet out into the field to just call a timeout and you're going to throw a flag. Like, let me put it to you this way. Imagine, because there was a fumble on that one play. Imagine that the Saints recovered that and they threw that flag. Then the narrative completely changes because now it's like that's even though it technically still lost them the game. Like, imagine the Saints recover a fumble that could pretty much send the game to overtime.
Yeah.
Or Sean wants to, or possibly they could have won the game on that drive, which I doubt.
Yeah.
And then the narrative becomes, well, the refs, as Sean Payton was trying to call a timeout, or even though like the clock would stop because it's a change of possession, and then people want to be like, he made the gesture of choke, which I saw, but I was like, who cares?
Yeah.
Anyhow,
I don't know.
It's So Sean Payton, keep doing you.
Yeah.
Let's move on. I wanna talk about this giant shakeup. No pun intended. With the New York Giants, them firing Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese. Me personally, as much as me and you probably hate the Giants, which we do, because for both NFC East fans. Um, I think the Giants made the right move in a sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that Ben McAdoo was not a bad coach, because clearly he has showcased throughout the season how he was a bad coach. But my argument is that the primary reason for the Giants' woes was Jerry Reese. And I know people, and I've had people like Giants fans here tell me, oh, "What are you talking about, Jerry Reese?" And I'm not saying every Giants fan, because I know a ton of them hate Jerry Reese.
Yeah.
But they're like, Jerry Reese got us 2 Super Bowls, but that's the problem. Just because you have rings doesn't mean that, like, let me put it to you this way. Jason Garrett, right, of the our head coach, has I think two Super Bowl rings, right? But does that make him
Yeah.
did that make him a fantastic quarterback? Absolutely not. I mean,
Yeah.
so like, I think that the Giants made the great decision of firing Jerry Reese. Of course, it's going to be a determination of who replaces him, because just because you fire someone, like when people want to be like, and I was like a bit gung ho on wanting to fire Jason Garrett, and I know who I wanted. My thing is you could fire someone, but whoever you replace with could determine,
Who you
like,
want.
yeah, like imagine, like in this case, Chimp Kelly gets fired, right?
Right.
And my question was that, like, everyone wanted to fire, and I'm like, yeah, deservedly so. But my thing
Yeah.
is who do you bring in to replace him? Like, let's say
Who
they
did,
brought in Adam Gase.
who did you want to replace Jason Garrett?
Who did I want? Who did I say? I think I wanted, like, in my personally, I wanted a Jim Harbaugh, but I knew that wasn't gonna happen. The only
Yeah,
one that
he's not.
I know the only one that I realistically could see get back into coaching was possibly John Gruden, because
But you don't want him.
yeah, he's one of the, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like,
He'll be
and,
he'll
and
be
that,
he'll be he'll be sucking Dak Prescott's dong in the locker room after every single game.
he'd be sucking his
Yeah, yeah.
spider what is it what is
I
it, the
knew it.
banana,
What?
the 2Y banana split, whatever it's called.
Oh yeah, the spider 2Y banana.
Yeah, exactly. Sucking on that banana. No, I'm kidding. No, but look. At the end of the day, the Giants made probably the best decision in firing. And I even said that. And I don't know if I went on the record on the podcast, but I know I've said before that I think that if they were looking at getting a head coach or promoting someone within their organization, they should have promoted Steve Spagnuolo,
Yeah.
because Steve Spagnuolo, like, my thing is like, if you like if your team is based off of defense,
Mhm.
you want a defensive minded coach.
Yeah.
Why would you need an offensive minded coach for a team that prides itself on defense? Now, I will admit that at the first year Ben McAdoo looked pretty good, but I would argue that Steve Spagnuolo was the primary reason the Giants got to the playoffs, because he does an amazing job as the defensive coordinator. Now, it's going to be the determination of how he does as a head coach, which we all know his record.
Yeah,
As a
it's
head
not
coach.
so good. My feeling is that this was a long time coming. I would say more so the Jerry Reese firing, because Jerry Reese basically in hire in hired
And
uh
hired.
well, he received an amazing team from Ernie Accorsi, who was the Giants. He inherited the team from Ernie Accorsi, who Ernie Accorsi did a pretty decent job of building that team, bringing in guys like Eli Manning, Plaxico Burress, drafting guys like Justin Tuck, bringing.
He's still with the Giants, right? Corsi. He's like a
Yeah, no, he's not.
consultant.
Maybe, but he's not the GM anymore.
I know he's not the GM. Like, wasn't it like he retired the year after they won the Super Bowl or something?
Or
The before, okay. So he was like Tiki Barber now.
oh,
But-
Ernie Accorsi is He's an executive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
mhm.
but the way I see it, my feeling is that I feel like I now I don't know what really went on in like the clubhouse when it came to the Giants, and I don't really again I haven't really seen that many Giants games when it comes to the X's and O's, but I don't know if you really fire Matt. I think really they fired him because he was unpopular, not necessarily because of
I think it was just a pop. I think it was just a public eye
yeah
move or
yeah.
fan. Yeah.
He did a poor job coaching this year. He did a poor job coaching, but he did a poor job coaching last year. Is the real thing. They're
Yeah.
a
Like,
defensively minded team. I don't really think he was ready to be the head coach, especially because the moment he became the head coach, the Giants went from a powerhouse offense to not to Eli Manning throwing 24 touchdowns in a season, and that's probably like 10 less touchdowns as he had the season before.
mhm.
It's just I don't really think he gelled that well with Eli Manning. I don't think that he and of course like them not bringing in offensive linemen that really hurt the team. I think that a lot of his thought processes were wrong. Him saying, you know, the Giants really didn't have that good of a running attack, so he was like stats like what stats are for nerds.
Geeks.
His haircut looked awful. The moment he slicked back his hair like the
He
God.
originally looked like the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and now he became like
Now
that.
then he became like an old Italian man slicking his hair back. Does he have a wife? Because if I
I
ever,
think he does.
if I ever did that, Kelly would be like, "No, you're going back to the bathroom. I don't care if you're 10 minutes late. You're
I'm leaving you.
no. She wouldn't say I'm leaving you. She'd say you're fixing that. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. He's married, by the way.
she doesn't even let me outside with pajama bottoms. So like it's I Jerry Reese was god awful. He ran that team into the ground. I don't feel bad for McAdoo. I don't feel bad for Jerry Reese. But I'll tell you something: the Giants not putting Eli Manning back in there doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, like I completely like. Here's my thing. I had the red zone, so of course I'm flipping through teams and I'm watching. I'm like, okay, let's see how these teams do. Like a good majority of the game that I watched was that Giants and Oakland game, and I
Yeah,
will admit, like I thought the Giants were gonna lose. But what surprised me was I understand Geno didn't have the greatest game, but the fact that they put up 17 points and that it was a pretty close game for the most part.
yeah,
And I mean, it literally they could have gotten the ball back to possibly tie the game if it wasn't for a mishap.
yeah.
So like, what if I was the head coach of the New York Giants right now? I would have benched Eli
A-
but a long time ago.
yeah,
I'm like, and people come at me and be like, "What do you mean? He's a two like look, yes, he gives you the tears and stuff, but at the end of the day, I've learned from past experiences with other teams that holding on to key stars that had once good not name recognition, but good like they were in their primes. Now
yeah,
he's long past this. Like, I mean, look at the Phillies. I mean, that is a prime example of holding on to your core for way too long. And
yeah.
now look where they're at.
It's not even that. It's the fact that they're 2-10 and have been losing for a while. It's not like, oh, there's a possibility we can go to the playoffs. No, there's a possibility you could go 5-11, but Eli Manning's not gonna. Right now, if they want to say, and I know that both of us were against the word tanking, but like that is a possibility at this point in time to be like, okay, well, like I don't like to use the word tanking. I like to use the word
Losing on purpose.
oh no. I like to use the phrase uh evaluation
Oh no, yeah, I completely agree with you.
evaluation with nothing to play for.
Yeah, like when the Cowboys were like in 2015, when they got out of playoff contention, right? Even before that, like I wanted to see how the team was gonna do, like all phases of it, and clearly I was like, oh wow, we got something with Kellen Moore, like blah 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 blah. But then, that's the thing, like and if you're the Giants, I should. I kind of was. I didn't approve of the Geno Smith starting mainly because it's Geno Smith, and you know what you're gonna get from him.
You know
What
what?
he should.
Yeah, you know what you're getting from Geno Smith.
Yeah, you don't know what you're getting from Davis Webb. Like for all we know, Davis Webb could be the second Eli Manning in that. Okay, he could win you games, he can lose you games, but at the end of the day, he's a solid starter.
Or he
And
could,
I mean,
or he could throw 5 interceptions in the first half.
or he could be a Nathan Peterman. But but look, if I'm the Giants, I do not understand. And like you said, I think it's the dumbest move for them to start Manning again. And people are like, well, that streak. I mean, well, you do know that they've been doing that for the past, I would say, 2 years.
Yeah,
Just
and
playing it for the sake of the streak.
they really think that he was going to pass Brett Favre? I mean, he would have to. He would have to start. Brett Favre has 296 straight games. He would have to. Eli Manning would have to play for 5 or 6 more seasons, or more. No, more. My math sucks. He would have to play for 4 more seasons for that to happen.
Yeah, like, and that is what irritates me is people like they don't understand how like a rebuild process works. Obviously, and I understand the Giants have talented pieces, but the issue is, and this was a huge issue that I predicted from the moment they started signing all these key defensive players. Number one, you're gonna go into cap hell, which no one should be in. And not only that, like, yeah, sure, it's gonna do good the first year, but the next year, guess what? It's gonna fall apart. I mean, I said the Brandon Marshall signing was a bad thing. I said that they drafted pretty mediocre considering who they could have taken. And I will admit, yes, Evan Ingram was a nice piece.
But it looks like their best pick was Evan Ingram.
Yeah, but that's not saying much. I mean, like, and I even said that Evan Ingram, while it is a decent pick, you still had a ton of offensive lineman prospects that could have easily fit the bill. Garrett Bowles, yeah, I know he went off the board earlier, even though he was probably the most polished one. But you still had what was it? Cam Robinson, and a couple other pieces you could have gone with, and that could have easily fixed the situation. I mean, remember, we're talking about Jerry Reese also passed up on Todd Gurley, who I think the Giants should have taken in that draft. But anywho.
Yeah.
But anywho, I think we've exhausted on this topic. Yep, I think we kind of agree Jerry Reese should have been gone. As for Ben McAdoo, I mean, he was doing what he had to do, but at the end of the day, that doesn't mean he's a good head coach.
I think the last straw was benching Eli.
Yeah, I guess I would say this. I think Ben McAdoo would be still coaching if Eli was not benched.
Yeah, but that's
yeah.
but that's so dumb.
I know.
It's like, I mean, like, the season doesn't even matter,
Yeah, like you're just starting him for the sake of starting him.
They're starting him for the sake of, he's got a record, and
like this is what happened with Troy Aikman, and I hate to keep dragging this on, but this is a good point. I remember, like, I don't remember it, but like looking back at it, I'm pretty sure my mom recalls this because she saw Aikman's whole career. But like at the end of Aikman's career, he was average at best because he wasn't that player he once was. Well, that and the team was not good. And so they were just starting or trying to keep Aikman around for the sake of just Aikman. They were not looking at getting a future guy. They were not looking at, hey.
There were so many good ones who came out from 98 to 2001.
I found out that had the Cowboys kept their first round pick, they could have taken Drew Brees in that one draft. But instead we got Quincy Carter. But
smoke weed every day.
Yeah. I will admit Quincy Carter could have been a talented QB if he had kept his head straight, but
if he kept
anyhow.
His off the bud.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the Browns. The Cleveland
the factory sadness.
Yeah, and the main exporter of crippling depression. No, no, I do joke around, but in all seriousness,
Depressed.
um, like,
Funny story. When I was a substitute teacher last year, there was this like really fat doughy kid in one of the classes. I swear,
uh-huh.
every 5 seconds, this kid he out of his mouth came, "I have crippling depression," and I was like,
That's kids.
"Leave then." He was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, go to the office." And then he like waddles out the door. I have crippling depression, and I was like, the only time I ever cursed in front of students, I was like, or the first time, I was like, "Fuck that kid," and the whole class giving me like, "Yeah, we hate him." It's like
Okay.
life in
So
high school.
yeah. So Cleveland Browns decide to fire Sashi Brown, and I'm
Great.
actually okay.
Great. Now, hopefully, the D Podesta is next
Oh Lord.
because that.
No, look, I've been trying to tell Brown, like, I'm not saying Browns fans. I mean, probably DJ's the only one that I know that's a Browns fan that I could actually talk to.
You did that for 2 years now.
No, but in all seriousness, though, I think I like the hire, but the issue is like I don't think people understand a total rebuild like how they're trying to do it. Like, yeah, the team sucks. I understand that, but at the end of the day, you know this team is deprived of talent across the board. They made horrendous draft pick after horrendous draft pick for however long. I mean, this draft class looked pretty solid for the most part. I will admit that Myles Garrett, yes, he has 5.5 sacks in his rookie year, but to be fair, he has been hurt.
Yeah.
So, but like the issue is that clearly Cleveland, and I've been saying this, you got to keep Hugh Jackson around until some point.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to keep him around for. You have to keep him around for at least 4 years.
Yeah, like, and I'm watching. Yeah, sure, they went 1-15. I think his first year as a head coach, but I'm like, you have to understand, like, he had no talent, and then you come into this year. When I watch the games, right, and I see what's going on, Josh Gordon just came back and he had decent numbers, so that's going to help a quarterback out a lot. And I mean, like, to be fair, I feel like Kaiser. I don't know if he is the guy to be at quarterback, but I think that if you're the Browns, you just have to continue putting talent in pieces across the team. I mean, they're going to have 2 top 10 picks probably this year based on who they traded with. And I think you might be saying, well, who do you take with the first pick? Well, in all honesty, do you take a quarterback? I don't know. But I mean, like, I wouldn't, I guess, go against.
I wouldn't be against them getting a quarterback.
That, yeah, like, I mean, like a Baker. I don't know about Baker Mayfield.
I think that the options that the Browns have in this offseason, they can really do anything. They can build their defensive line. They can draft a quarterback. They could draft offensive line. They can really do anything right now. And they're probably going to trade. I mean, they're probably going to trade that pick away for like 2 first-round draft to a team that has 2 first-round draft picks, or possibly three-way trade it so they could get multiple first-round draft picks. And that's good. I mean, that's been the Browns' MO for a long time. I think they've gone into 4 out of the last 10 drafts with multiple first-round draft picks. So they've done it multiple times. So it's not like outlandish that they're going to do it. They just need to be able to bring talent to the team, and they need to. I think that you might see Hugh Jackson on the hot seat if they don't get 6 wins next year.
And this is what's kind of funny, because from what I've heard from Hugh Jackson and what people have around close to him said, he wanted like Carson Wentz, he wanted Jared Goff, he wanted He wanted Deshaun Watson. He wanted that quarterback prospect, but they said no. But like, I will admit, you have Deshaun Kaiser, who I thought was the biggest wild card of the draft.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, yeah, clearly he's not looking so good his first year, but to be fair, he's been getting concussed, which is going to be a huge issue. And I mean, if you're the Brown,
it's gonna hurt his confidence.
Exactly. So that's why I'm thinking you might have to pick a quarterback. Mainly because, you know,
And
if you're the yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of good ones out there. There are a lot of good Pac-12 ones. I I I I don't think a player like Baker Mayfield is gonna help them though.
He reminds me so much. Okay, I don't want to say he is Johnny Manziel
because he's not Johnny. He's more talented than Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
The fact that I would be very, very hesitant about his character. Because if you look at the big three right now, it's Sam Darnold, it's Josh Rosen, and it's Baker Mayfield is obviously the Heisman Trophy winner. If all three of those guys are in the draft, obviously they'll be picked 1, 2, and 3, for teams that need quarterbacks. But, you have Sam Darnold, who's a nice guy, who he has raw talent. Right? A nice guy. He's a good character kid who is very inconsistent. His good games, he has great games. His bad games, he'll throw for 2, 3 interceptions. With Josh Rosen, he is a talented player, but he's like, I've heard that he's a kind of a snob. He's really smart, but he's a huge snob.
Wait, who?
And then Josh Rosen.
Yeah, Rosen. I was like,
I heard he's really snobbish because he's so smart. He thinks that he knows everything. Baker Mayfield, he is probably the most NFL ready quarterback, but he's an asshole.
Yeah, but here's my thing, and I've been starting to because I'm starting to work on my prospects of who people should pick, and my top 5 in each position category. And as I'm watching Baker Mayfield, I've been noticing how he there have been plays where if he gets hit in the pocket, right? On the next play or the next couple plays, he just rushes around and he tries to get the ball off. And it's just it's starting to become a bit of an issue because now I'm thinking, and don't get me wrong, he is still the most talented prospect in this draft class, in my opinion. But there are flaws that I'm starting to see with him. And I mean, and also the character thing does not help him out a bit. But in all honesty, I think with Baker Mayfield, it's hard because it's with Johnny Manziel, I didn't even want him. I was worried the Cowboys were going to take him. Thank God we didn't. Yeah. Because the problem is, and another issue is his size. I mean, what is he, 6 foot?
I think he's 5'11".
5'11", okay. So
well, his height to me doesn't really matter.
Me personally, height doesn't matter because in all honesty, as long as you can do your job, whatever height you're at, you're good.
Wilson is 5'9", Drew Brees is 5'11", 5'9", 5'10". Michael Vick was 5'10", even though it said he was 6 feet.
Lies. No, but
yeah, but going back to the Browns as a whole, I think that as long as you bring in a GM that's going to make free agents want to play for you guys, and as long as Hugh Jackson, gets the team off to a better pace next year, I think that they'll be keeping them. But I really think that they need to lock Hugh Jackson up for at least 2 more years.
I would say give it 2 more years because you have to keep in mind that this is the problem. When you have a carousel of GMs and coaches, that doesn't help your case at one bit. I mean, and it's just an issue because I felt with a guy before Hugh Jackson, what was his name?
It was
Mike. Is it Mike something? I forget.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy that led him to 7 and 9 or whatever. I mean, in all honesty, that's the issue. I thought that guy was decent.
Mike Pettine. Mike Pettin.
Mike Pettin. Okay, Mike Pettin.
Yeah, he had them at 7 and 9.
Yeah, and they were at 6 and 3 at one point or something, right?
Shanahan was their offensive coordinator.
True. So let me tell you something. With John Dorsey, his notable draft picks, because he was with KC, I believe, since 2012. I don't remember.
Hill.
Oh yeah. So here's who we picked. Eric Fisher, offensive tackle, who's been pretty solid, but nothing out of worldly. I know he was the first pick.
Yeah.
Overall. Travis Kelce, best tight end in football, arguably. Marcus Peters, one of the better DBs in the league. Tyreek Hill.
Likes to throw flags at Jews.
Yeah, exactly. Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Wide receiver. And then Patrick Mahomes, the second. I mean, and obviously we don't know what we're gonna get with Patrick Mahomes. Me personally, if you're the Chiefs, if you lose this game,
you gotta start.
I think you have to start him because I don't know because you know what you're gonna get from Alex Smith at this point. I mean, ever since that Dallas game, they just
well, he had against the Jets. It's just the defense. You have to understand what Andy Reid does. Andy Reid will play well for like the first few seasons, and then you'll notice that he's horrible at drafting defensive players. Andy Reid doesn't give a shit about linebackers. He doesn't give a shit about safeties or corners. He'll just do a horrible job at drafting players at the very end. Like, he'll get too comfortable. That's the only issue with Andy Reid. He's a great guy. People might be like, oh, you're jealous. No.
It's like, yeah, like, and I told people, like, when they...
I'm not jealous, Colin Cowherd.
Yeah, like, when the Eagles fired... when they fired...
Andy
oh
Reid.
My God, Andy Reid, yeah. Initially, like, well, not initially, but like when they fired him in 2012, after the 2012 season, you knew it was a good move because, it was a good move because Andy Reid, probably the longest tenure, the winningest Eagles head coach in their history, but like, and this is an issue when it comes to like, tenure and like, oh well, he's the winningest coach, how could you get rid of him? It's like, because that's how it is. Eventually they lose the...
How could you get rid of him? It's like if you look
back
if you look back at almost every single legend, most of them have been gotten rid of. I mean, Tom Landry,
yeah, exactly, that's a perfect example.
Fired. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know what happened to Vince Lombardi. I don't know.
Joe Gibbs.
I don't know what happened to Don Shula. Did Don
Shula
get fired or did he step down?
I think he stepped down.
Okay. Joe Montana. You can't get rid of Joe Montana.
What they did, and it ended up giving, like, that's the issue. Like, people don't realize that at some point or another, you have to let go, and clearly the Eagles showcase that. The Browns just let go of people way too quickly before they can finish, at least get the team into a somewhat decent position.
They let them go before they could finish.
Yeah. Humor. But look,
hey guys, everyone in the audience, I'm 4 years old.
Yeah, I know. We have the humor of 4-year-olds. But I think the Browns... Do I think Sashi Brown was the greatest GM? No. I think that was he making good decisions? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get more draft capital, gets you more hits in the draft to work with. And I mean, clearly, the 2016 draft clearly showcased, or not the 2016, 2017. Well, actually, you could argue 2016, but for the most part, they've been doing relatively decent. I mean, not a lot of draft picks pan out.
Yeah.
Immediately. Like, I mean, like DeMarcus Lawrence, for example. I mean, the guy kept getting hurt. He had the 8-sack season, like, I believe, in his second season. And then he gets hurt, or I think he got suspended in 2016, but then, like, he didn't really got hurt.
You'd be lucky if you have 3 or 4 draft picks that do well in a 3 or 4 starters.
I mean, look at the freaking Cowboys. I mean, their 2016 draft was arguably one of the best in their history, if not the best in NFL, one of the best in NFL history. You get a franchise running back, a quarterback. Who knows what Jalen Smith does? You get a solid defensive tackle. I mean, that draft class was so freaking loaded with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly you could show that if you hit on every single pick, it could do a lot of a lot of things. Anywho, I think we've exhausted this. I don't want to keep talking in circles. So let's get to our games. Should we talk about the Cowboys game first? Because really, that one's kind of like
it happens first.
Yeah, well, yeah, it happens first, and also it's kind of one of the more lamer games. But then again, it is a divisional game.
Every game is important, Ricky.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's like we gotta be freaking hobos looking for W's.
Now none of the games are important. All right.
Anywho, Cowboys are going to MetLife tomorrow with an interesting color arrangement. The first in franchise history of wearing the blue jerseys and the white pants, while the Giants are wearing their color rush jerseys.
The Giants have never worn white at home.
Never?
That's like never. Not that I've ever seen. Besides that Saints game.
But we don't we disregard that one because
technically a home game. That was technically an away game. But because there are certain teams that never wear white at home, the Giants being one of them, Atlanta being another, Pittsburgh being another. There are some teams that always wear white at home, like the Dolphins, like the Rams this year are wearing white at home because their home jerseys with that helmet looks ridiculous.
I'm sorry, but like this is my thing. I don't want to get too much on a tangent with the Rams, but I like the white helmets. Do not get me wrong. Like I like the white and blue helmets, but they should have changed the gold. The gold should have been the secondary color, not the freaking one of the primaries.
Yeah, they should have changed that before the season.
The budget, if they did budget cuts. Now, anyhow, so with uniforms aside, the Cowboys, I just found out that 3 defensive players, those being David Irving, Orlando Scandrick, and God, I keep forgetting. Oh, and Justin Durant. They're all out. They've been all ruled out. But in all honesty, I think the Cowboys are still going to win this game. I'm not saying this, and I'm not taking this game lightly, even though the Giants are sitting at a horrible record, because we all know once you. What's that?
Stop being such a Giants fan.
Oh yeah, I know. But look, Cowboys just had to do it. They found what they had to do. Clearly, the team got a spark in the Thursday game. They got a ton of rest. Sean Lee's back, so that we get to see what the Cowboys look like without Zeke. In essence, I don't want to say fully healthy, but healthy in the sense that all their main important role players are playing. I know people are like, well, David Irving, I mean, but in all honesty, like with the defensive line, it's more rotational to a T.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, but again, Cowboys they need to win this game if they want to stay in the playoff hunt. I think that if the Cowboys win out, you obviously, and I keep telling people this, I mean, yeah, sure, am I scoreboard watching games? Absolutely. Unfortunately, we've resorted to that. But the thing is, and people, like, my thing is if you get to 10 wins, you normally should get in. And people are like, well, I don't know about this season. But in all honesty, from what I'm watching from these teams, I think you're going to see the teams start to beat up on one another, and eventually you're probably going to see one team squeak in, whether that be the Packers or the Cowboys. People want to be. I don't think the Seahawks are going to make it based off of the fact that they had to play. You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they play the Cardinals. They play the Rams, and I think they play the Jags. That's going to be a tough game.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then again, like, I could be saying that, but for all I know, tomorrow, like, my opinion could change depending on what the result of that game is.
And it's close throughout. But go on.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to get at is just you have to win your games, or else the rest doesn't matter. So I'm focused on getting to 7-6, and you should be able to beat this team handily. Again, this is a divisional game, so tons of stuff can happen.
Yeah.
But I think I'm saying the Cowboys are probably going to win. I'm going to say 24-13. I think Dallas kind of. and considering Eli Manning starting, people are like, oh no, Eli Manning, he's coming back. I mean, it's like, but Eli Manning arguably was the reason they were losing to begin with. I'm not saying, I know there were pieces, I get it, but from what he's been, he hasn't been any better. And again, he's going to be fired up. I don't know. I mean,
It could be, but that
he'll get fired up to throw 5 picks. No, I'm kidding.
I am hoping that, like, I don't really care, but I'm hoping the Cowboys lose so that the Eagles get into the playoffs. And shall we transition into my game?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my game was kind of lackluster. This is a good game.
Because this last Seahawks game, and what did I say? What did I say? I said the referees were going to be downright garbage, and that was probably like the second worst officiated Eagles game I've seen this whole.
It was kind of, yeah.
It was pretty bad. Like, I'm not gonna say now all those people. Oh, it's square. I know. Okay, I know. The referees didn't win the Seahawks the game, but it definitely didn't help my feeling as a fan. The referees didn't cause Carson Wentz to overthrow Nelson Aguilar. The refs didn't cause Carson Wentz to fumble the ball out of the end zone. The refs didn't. Well, maybe the refs caused Doug Peterson to not challenge that. He
was like, "Listen, fam. It's okay," and I'll be like, "Okay."
But I will say that I'm very pessimistic. I just want to get in. I would rather be known as a fan of a ringless team than as a fan of a team that chokes as hard as like I'm.
Don't be the 19. I don't want to bring this up because this is way too premature to bring this up because I've told people because they're kind of like, oh no, they might lose that. Look. The problem is, if the Eagles lose this game, I do have the Rams winning, but this was a 50-50 game for me. Because, and
for me, and I picked the Eagles only because I picked the Eagles before the season ever started, and I've only changed my mind once.
Yeah. So my thing is that if the Eagles lose this game, and also it depends on how you lose the game, but
yeah.
Then it starts getting a lot more tricky because you don't want to get into you don't want the players of your team to start thinking, are we really good or are we bad? And that could result in a ton of things. And I told people this. I don't care if the Eagles ended up going and I said, even if they lose these next 2 games, right? The only way you could convince me that they could possibly fall apart is if they lose to the Giants, which I doubt.
Yeah.
So I think that the Eagles are going to clinch at any point. It's just, but I will say, the Eagles, they just got to win this game.
Yeah, Eagles fans are like worried about seeding. No, I don't care about seeding. If this game goes into overtime and there's 2 minutes left, just kneel it. Go for the tie because the tie wins you the division. I don't. Yeah. It doesn't matter to me. Seeding doesn't matter to me because these teams have proven that they're able to win at other teams' houses.
Not only that, Hank. Normally, if you have the first seed or you have a top seed, it could possibly play against you because, we saw how the Eagles looked after the bye.
Yeah, but the Eagles are also a different team at home.
No, I understand that. Do not get me wrong. But my thing is that the Eagles, I think that the loss is going to help them in that, okay, listen, guys, clearly we need to correct our course and we need to just get back to what we can do and we can start winning games.
Yeah.
And I
think that they were too cocky with that whole electric slide thing. That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. We're winning 31-3. Do we and we're beating the freaking Bears. Like, I told you, I sat watching that game. Like, I was like, dude, like, I feel bad for Chicago because your team is garbage. But
yeah, it's like the Eagles are doing their job, but they're winning games they're supposed to win. It's like people want to be like, I'm not saying they suck. It's like, obviously, if they're beating teams they're supposed to beat, then obviously they're doing what they got to do. Like, I'm not saying they're an overrated team. I will say that. Do I think that they're those world beaters? No.
They're a bit overrated. I think they celebrated a bit too hard. And I mean, they didn't do
And,
what they needed to do. But I think that this game will be a little bit different in the sense of the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles fans have basically invaded LA. You know,
yeah,
like
because well, you do realize
yeah,
like the other game was like a 20,000 seat stadium, so I mean,
yeah,
not really.
no, but apparently it's like what Fox is hiring Rams people actors to play Rams fans in the stands.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
Well,
Um,
they're
Final
play Rams.
flash in the comments. He says the Cowboys haven't had a bad draft in years. To be honest, I would say the last draft class that I could say was bad was probably 20.
2000,
Uh, what's that?
2009. The year
Yeah, 2009 was horrible.
you guys selected a punter in the fourth round.
Yeah. But like after that, the Cowboys have had solid drafts from 2010 onward for the most part.
But
So,
back to the game, it worries me that they've got a lot of talent. I mean, the Rams are a talented team. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not gonna lie about that. The Rams are a scary team. They've got Todd Gurley. Sean McVay is calling a good game consistently. Jared Goff looks way better than he did last year. Their pass rush is a beast. Wade Phillips is a beast defensive coordinator. I just it's not going to be. I mean, any Eagles fan saying this is going to be easy, it's not. I mean, the Eagles have had some of their worst games against McVay.
mhm.
Last year, where we got swept by the Redskins 2 consecutive seasons with McVay calling the plays. I think that one of the biggest thing is, the defensive line can't lose contain, and you have to be able to stop Gurley from running. And on offense, you just got to pound the ball. You can't have a late start like the Eagles have been having.
Oh yeah, and I want to bring this up, but I don't want to say this is a must-win for Philly, but it's because realistically, they
Every game,
really, huh?
every game is a must-win.
Well,
Right now.
yeah, yeah, by that logic. But my thing is that the the thing is like you depending again, like I said, depending on how you lose this game will determine possibly the mindset going into the next couple games. It's like if you guys get crushed, let's say that you lose by like 17 or 20,
Yeah,
that's like that could be a huge demoralizing thing. But then again, it's like that sometimes ticks teams off, but sometimes and I will say this, I'm not, and I've been telling people this because people would be like, oh, well, you know, oh, well, oh no, the Eagles might collapse, like even after they lost one game. I'm like, come back to me when they're sitting at 10-4 if you want to talk about that.
hmm
But I'm not saying it's going to happen. But if you're the Eagles, you just got to win so that you don't have to worry about this idea of a collapse. Because if you I don't want to say like you guys are gonna do it because I don't think you guys are like, and I don't want to have this stupid idea of like a collapse. But that crap could do a lot to a team, and like I
no,
don't understand. And like, could you imagine? I understand 2014 was bad, but this would completely overshadow that. Like I think this would probably be the worst collapse I've seen.
one time the Eagles went 7-0 and then ended 7-9.
Man, let me tell you something. I think the Eagles they should do decent in this game as long as they stick to what they do.
Yeah.
They just got to run the football and not put so much pressure on Carson Wentz. I know he can make plays, but in all honesty, he should not be having to carry the team. And the defense just got to ball out. So,
Yeah, I agree. So do you want to do fantasy.
Yes, okay, guys. So, in case you made it to the fantasy football playoffs like I did, Hank, I'm not sure how he did in his other leagues.
You can join me on the couch.
Uh,
Mm,
but no. In case you guys are wondering how I did 9-4 in both the Two Birds and a Third fantasy football league, and my For Money league. I got first seed in this, and Two Birds in the third one. The other I got a third seed. So the question's going to become, well, who's your must start and must sit? Obviously we'll go through each of them. I mean, obviously, some of you are playing for pride at this point.
At quarterback, I start Jared Goff.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
I'd either start Jared Goff or I'd start Phillip Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit Marcus Mariota because he's garbage.
That's good because I'm going up against him in my first round of the fantasy football playoffs.
Starting him.
No, not in our league. Someone else in my For Money league. So, and they're a 6 seed, by the way. They were like 7 and 9 when they squeaked in. So,
I was done with Marcus Mariota about 4 weeks ago.
Anywho, okay. I have a couple of important factors to bring up. Number one, my must start. I have two. My first one was gonna be Jared Goff, but that's fine. Because I agree with you on that. My other must start is Dak Prescott. I think he's gonna have a pretty good game against the Giants. I think I don't know about passing, but I think with the rushing, I think that now that Dallas can solidify a running game, I think he'll be more susceptible for running, doing more play action plays in which he'll run the ball into the end zone, giving him much more fantasy value. My must sit is probably going to be I'm going to say Carson Wentz, mainly due to the fact that he's going up against a solid Rams defense, and I would say Marcus Mariota too, but that's pretty much a given. Must pick up if Aaron Rodgers is in your fantasy waiver wire, pick him up now because he most likely will be coming back and he can help you make a late push to the championship game.
All right. So running back, I would say must start Kareem Hunt and must sit must sit would be Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I could see that. Just give me 1 second before I I just want to make sure that this guy's okay. So my must start at running back, and I did pick this guy last week, and he did give me 20 points, even though I lost horrifically. Kenyon Drake, I believe, for the Miami Dolphins, their running back. I think that, and if you saw, he can make pretty good plays. I think he'll give you a solid amount of points to win your game. Another must start is Samaje Perine, mainly because he is the guy to go to. And not only that, even though he can rush the ball, he can also catch the ball out of the backfield and do what he has to do. Yeah. My must sit is probably going to be Derrick Henry. I know Derrick Henry, he's kind of in a running back by committee, but I don't know about this week. I would have said Alvin Kamara if we were doing this before Thursday.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah. And Adrian Peterson's out. I apologize. But anywho, I don't really care at that point. Also, another waiver wire pickup if Ezekiel Elliott is in your league, and he's on waiver wire, pick him up. Because he's gonna, if you make it to the championship game, he's gonna help you out a lot. All right, wide receiver.
Oh, sorry, I was responding to the peanut gallery.
Oh,
All right, so wide receiver, I would say you should start AJ Green. And you should sit. You should always sit Stefan Diggs because he never does anything when you start him.
Oh my god. Okay. I'm gonna say my must start is probably Brandon. I don't want to say Brandon Cooks because he's always a must start, but I would say Michael Crabtree. I don't think Amari Cooper's playing this week,
He's not. And it's
so he'll
not
get some solid playing time.
playing like dump as well.
Yeah, and I think that Michael Crabtree is going to have a solid bounce back game, especially after that suspension. My must sit is Devontae Adams. I think that Cleveland's defense is going to give Brett Hundley problems. I think it's the weather there's not supposed to be great either.
Okay.
So I would not start him. Yeah. So let's move on to tight end.
Tight end. You should always start Travis Kelce.
That's like a given.
And you should sit OJ Howard because they don't use him correctly.
Yeah. My must start is Hunter Henry. If you paid attention, the Washington Redskins tend to give up a lot to like very athletic tight ends, and Hunter Henry happens to be one of them.
Uh-huh.
And I think that he's going to be a huge weapon for the Chargers this week. As for my must sit, sit Jared Cook. I feel like Jared Cook, they're not using him as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he had one good game, or a couple good games, I should say. But I think at this point, he's no longer an option going further. And yeah, as for kicker, someone besides Nick Folk.
Yeah. Start Nick Folk or Robert Aguayo because
no, but I do. Yeah, I do have a serious one though. If you have Matt Prater, and I know I have him, and I'm not saying this because I have him, start him because Matt Prater does hit very long field goals, and considering the fact that Matthew Stafford, who I should have said was the must-sit QB, because his hand's hurting, yeah. I think that he's going to be a huge weapon for the Lions in this upcoming match.
Beating off to him.
Yeah, exactly. And as for your must-start defense, I'm saying if you have New England's defense, start them. Or Dallas's defense.
Or Cincinnati's defense.
Or anybody that's playing a pretty crappy offense. I would say you could argue Baltimore too, mainly because the Steelers tend to not do so good offensively against the Ravens, and considering the Ravens have been arguably the best defense in all of football over the season.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And again, if you are in the fantasy football playoffs,
good job.
Good job. Make sure that you come home with the trophy. I'm trying to look for my first championship ring. I mean, in my for Money League. By the way, I
want a ring. I want a ring before the Eagles, so that's pretty sad.
Yeah, and I'll laugh if I get a ring before the Eagles because I'll actually get one of those fake little trophies for pride. You're like, hey, I got this. But yeah.
All right. Say hi to the guy in the audience, whoever you are.
What up, B?
And pretty entertaining. Yeah. I mean, I've had fun reading your comments about all the stuff that I do for you. Anyway, do you have any last things to say?
I guess I would say my last words of wisdom before Sunday is don't lose, and if
you lose, then you suck.
Then you're gonna die. Not
the world. Everyone's gonna die. Everything sucks.
That's like my motto every time at the end of the show. It's just don't die. Anyhow. Yep. All right.
All right. Everyone have a nice day.